I'm Samuel Chun, and 3 months ago, I became one of the wealthiest men in California overnight. $200 million. Just like that. Transferred into my account from a man I'd only met twice in my entire life. But here's the thing about sudden wealth. It doesn't fill the holes in your soul. It doesn't answer the questions that kept you awake for 32 years. It doesn't explain why your mother looked at you with empty eyes every single day of your childhood. Why your father drank himself to death when you were 14. Why you grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in the worst part of Oakland while your cousins lived in mansions in Pacific Heights. The money was just the beginning. The real inheritance? That came in a letter. A single piece of paper that explained everything. Every hurt. Every betrayal. Every lie. And when I finished reading it, I realized that the people who stole my childhood, who destroyed my family, who turned my mother into a hollow shell of a human being, they were still out there, living their perfect lives, sleeping peacefully at night. Not anymore. This is the story of how I got my revenge. And trust me, it was worth every penny. Let me take you back to where this all started. March 15th, 3 months ago, I was sitting in my cramped studio apartment in downtown LA, eating instant ramen for the 4th night in a row when my phone rang. Mr. Samuel Chun? The voice was professional, crisp. Attorney voice. Yeah, that's me. If this is about student loans, I'm still on the payment plan. This is Marcus Wellington from Wellington and Associates. I'm calling regarding the estate of Richard Chun. I understand he was your uncle? I almost dropped my phone. Uncle Richard, my father's older brother. I'd met him exactly twice. Once at my father's funeral when I was 14, and once at my grandmother's funeral 5 years ago. Both times, he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. He passed away 2 weeks ago, the attorney continued. His will has been executed, and you've been named as the primary beneficiary. I laughed. Actually laughed. That's impossible. Uncle Richard hated me. He hated my entire family. Nevertheless, Mr. Chun, you've inherited his entire estate. I need you to come to our offices in San Francisco tomorrow at 2 p.m. to sign the necessary documents. How much are we talking about here? Like a few thousand? Because I really can't afford to take time off work in. The liquid assets alone amount to approximately $200 million. There's also a property portfolio, but we can discuss that tomorrow. The ramen fell out of my hand. Noodles everywhere. I didn't even notice. I'm sorry, did you say 200 million? Yes, Mr. Chun. $200 million. Plus the properties. I'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. He hung up. I sat there, staring at the mess of noodles on my floor, my mind completely blank. $200 million. From a man who despised me. Something wasn't right that I took the first flight to San Francisco the next morning. Couldn't sleep anyway. The entire night, I kept thinking about my uncle. Richard Chun was a legend in our family. Or at least, he used to be before everything fell apart. He'd built a tech empire in the 90s. Started with nothing, became a billionaire by 40. My father used to talk about him with this mixture of pride and bitterness. They'd been close once, apparently. But something happened. Something nobody ever wanted to talk about. By the time I was born, Richard Chun was just a name. A ghost. The rich uncle who never called, never visited, never acknowledged our existence except to send my grandmother a check every month. Wellington and Associates had offices in one of those glass towers in the financial district. The kind of building I'd never stepped foot in before. The receptionist looked at my worn jeans and old jacket like I'd wandered in from the street. I'm here to see Marcus Wellington, I said. I'm Samuel Chun. Her expression changed instantly. Of course, Mr. Chun. Right this way. Mr. Chun. Nobody had ever called me that before. Marcus Wellington was exactly what you'd expect. Mid-50s, expensive suit, gray hair perfectly styled. He stood up when I entered, extending his hand. Samuel, thank you for coming on such short notice. I'm still trying to figure out why I'm here, I said, shaking his hand. My uncle and I weren't exactly close. So I understand. He gestured to a chair. Your uncle was very specific about his wishes. He left detailed instructions. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a will. Pages and pages of legal language that basically said the same thing over and over. Everything goes to Samuel Chun. The money, the houses, the stocks, the art collection, everything. I don't understand, I said. Why me? He has other family. He has. He was very clear that you were to be the sole beneficiary. Everyone else was specifically excluded. Everyone else. I looked up. You mean my cousins? Victoria and James? Marcus Wellington's expression remained neutral. Among others, yes. Victoria and James Chun. My uncle's children from his first marriage. I'd seen them at the funerals too. Victoria with her designer everything and James with his smug smile. Both of them had looked at me the same way their father did, like I was trash. They're going to contest this, I said. They already have. The will is ironclad. Your uncle spent the last 2 years of his life ensuring that every possible loophole was closed. They won't win. I leaned back in the chair, my mind racing. There has to be a reason. People don't just leave everything to someone they barely know. Marcus Wellington reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, expensive-looking. My name was written on it in shaky handwriting. Your uncle left this for you. He instructed me to give it to you after you'd seen the will. I took the envelope with trembling hands. It was sealed with red wax. Old-fashioned. He said you'd understand everything once you read it. I stared at the envelope. Can I read it here? Of course. Take your time. I broke the seal. Inside was a letter. Several pages, handwritten in the same shaky script as my name on the envelope. I started reading, and my entire world shattered. Samuel, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Good. I deserve to be. I've deserved it for 32 years. I'm not going to waste your time with apologies. Nothing I say can undo what I did. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know what they took from you. What I helped them take. Your mother wasn't always the way you remember her. Before you were born, she was brilliant. Vibrant. She had a PhD in biochemistry from Stanford. She was going to change the world. Your father loved her more than anything, and that was the problem. You see, your mother was supposed to marry me. It was arranged by our families when we were teenagers. Old-fashioned, I know, but that's how it was done back then. Our parents came from old money in Taiwan. Your mother's family and mine had business ties going back generations. It was understood that she and I would marry, combine the families, strengthen the empire. But then she met your father at Stanford. My younger brother. The charming one. The one who made her laugh. They fell in love. She broke off our engagement. Chose him instead. Chose love over duty. Over money. Over everything our families had planned. I should have been happy for them. I should have let it go. But I was young and stupid and angry. And I had powerful friends. Friends in the family business. Friends who didn't like the idea of my mother losing face because her future daughter-in-law ran off with the wrong son. So we made a plan. A terrible, unforgivable plan. Your mother was working on something revolutionary at the time. A new drug compound. Something that could have made her famous. Made her wealthy. Given her and your father the independence they needed. We stole it. My business partners and I. We took her research, filed the patents under one of my shell companies, and then destroyed all evidence that she'd ever worked on it. When she tried to fight back, we buried her. Made sure no university would hire her. Made sure no lab would touch her. The compound made me my first 100 million. Built my empire. Everything I have, everything I was, it came from your mother's work. From her genius. But that wasn't enough for my mother. Your grandmother. She never forgave your father for stealing your mother from me. Never forgave your mother for the embarrassment. So she cut them off. Completely. Told the entire family to shun them. Made sure they'd never see a penny of the family money. Your father tried everything. He took any job he could find. Worked himself to the bone trying to provide for you and your mother. But it broke him. Watching the woman he loved become a shell of herself. Watching you grow up in poverty when you should have had everything. That's why he drank, Samuel. That's why he died. The guilt. The helplessness. The knowledge that his love for your mother had destroyed her. And your mother? She never recovered from having her life's work stolen. Her dreams crushed. She slipped into depression. You probably don't remember her before that, but I do. I remember who she was. Who she could have been. I took that from her. I took that from you. For years, I told myself it was just business. That she chose poorly and had to face the consequences. But as I got older, as I watched my own children turn into entitled monsters, I realized what I'd done. The lives I'd destroyed. The family I'd torn apart. Your father was my brother. I loved him once. And I destroyed him. Destroyed his wife. Destroyed you. The money I'm leaving you? It's blood money. Every penny came from your mother's work. From the compound we stole. From the patents we filed. It should have been hers. It should have been yours. I can't give you back your childhood. I can't bring back your father. I can't give your mother back her dreams. But I can give you this. And I can give you the truth. My children, Victoria and James, they know everything. They've always known. They grew up on your mother's stolen work. They've spent your inheritance their entire lives. They laughed about it at family dinners. Joked about the poor relations in Oakland. Your grandmother knew too. She orchestrated the whole thing. Made sure your family would suffer for defying her wishes. She's still alive, still living in the family mansion in Pacific Heights. Still convinced she did the right thing. They all deserve to pay for what they did. I deserve to pay too, but I'm dead, so I suppose I've escaped justice. But you haven't. You're alive. You have the resources now. The truth. The proof. In the safety deposit box at First National Bank, key enclosed, you'll find all the evidence. The original research notes in your mother's handwriting. The patents filed under my company. The emails between me and my business partners. Everything. What you do with it is up to you. I hope you make them suffer the way they made your family suffer. I hope you take everything from them. I hope you give your mother the justice she never got. This is my final act. My attempt at redemption. It won't erase what I did, but maybe it will give you the tools to make things right. I'm sorry, Samuel. For everything. Richard Chun. I don't remember how long I sat there. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour. Marcus Wellington didn't say anything. Just waited. Finally, I looked up. Is this true? All of it. I was not privy to the contents of the letter, he said carefully. But I can confirm that there is a safety deposit box at First National Bank. And I can confirm that your uncle spent the last 2 years of his life putting his affairs in order in a very deliberate manner. I folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt cold, calm, like something inside me had frozen solid. The inheritance, I said. I want access to all of it. Immediately. Of course. I'll have the paperwork ready by end of business today. And the safety deposit box. He slid a small key across the desk. The bank is expecting you. I took the key. Stood up. One more thing. Victoria and James. They're contesting the will. Yes. They've hired Carlson and Associates. Very aggressive firm. I smiled. It didn't feel like my smile. Good. Let them try. The safety deposit box was downtown, in one of those old banks with marble floors and columns. The kind of place that smells like money and secrets. The manager escorted me personally to the vault. Opened the box with my key and his. Left me alone in a small private room. Inside the box was exactly what my uncle had promised. Folders. Documents. A USB drive. I started with the folders. The first one contained my mother's original research notes. Page after page of chemical formulas, diagrams, experimental results. Her handwriting was neat, precise, brilliant. The second folder had patents. Filed by Richmond Pharmaceuticals, one of my uncle's companies. The dates were 3 months after my mother's notes. The formulas were identical. The third folder was emails. Printed out, highlighted. My uncle and his business partners discussing the acquisition of the research. Joking about it. Planning how to shut my mother down if she tried to fight back. And then there were the family emails. Messages between my uncle and my grandmother. Between my cousins and their father. All of them laughing about my family's poverty. About my father's failure. About how my mother got what she deserved. There was one email from Victoria to James, sent 3 years ago. Did you see Samuel at Grandma's funeral? Still wearing the same cheap suit. I almost felt bad for him. But then I remembered Mom and Dad's house in Maui was paid for by his mother's stupidity. Then I felt great. I read every single document. Watched every video file on the USB drive. My uncle had recorded himself explaining everything, providing additional context. Making sure I understood exactly what they'd done. By the time I finished, it was dark outside. The bank manager knocked quietly on the door. Mr. Chun? We're closing soon. I need copies of everything, I said. Multiple copies. Some for my personal records, some for my attorneys. Of course, sir. We can arrange that tomorrow. I gathered all the documents, put them back in the box. Walked out of that bank a different person than I'd walked in. I had the truth now. I had the evidence. I had $200 million. And I had a plan that I didn't go back to LA. Instead, I checked into the Fairmont, one of the nicest hotels in San Francisco. The same hotel where my grandmother held the annual Chun family reunion every year. The same hotel where I'd never been invited. I booked the presidential suite. Cost $10,000 a night. I didn't even blink. Then I called my mother. She still lived in the same apartment in Oakland. The same place we'd lived my entire childhood. After my father died, I tried to get her to move, offered to help, but she never wanted to leave. Said all her memories were there. Samuel, her voice was quiet, tired. It was always tired. Hi, Mom. I'm in San Francisco. Can I come see you? Of course, baby. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I need to talk to you about something. I'll be there in an hour. I rented a car, a Tesla, because why not, and drove to Oakland. The neighborhood looked the same as it always had. Rundown. Forgotten. My mother's apartment was on the third floor of a building that should have been condemned years ago. I climbed the stairs, each step bringing back memories I tried to forget. She opened the door before I could knock. She'd always had this sixth sense about me. Samuel. She hugged me. She felt so small, so fragile. When had she gotten so old? Hey, Mom. Inside, the apartment was exactly the same. Same furniture. Same pictures on the walls. My school photos. My father's photo on the mantle, forever 42 years old. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd done my homework. Where we'd eaten countless dinners in silence. Where she'd stared into space while I tried to make conversation. Mom, I said, I need to tell you something. About Uncle Richard. Her expression didn't change. He died. I heard. He left me everything. His entire estate. $200 million. Now she reacted. Her eyes widened. What? Why would he? He left me a letter. Explaining everything. I pulled out my phone, showed her a picture of the letter. Mom, I know what happened. I know what they did to you. To Dad. To us. She stared at the phone screen. Her hands started shaking. Your research, I continued. The compound you developed at Stanford. They stole it. Uncle Richard and his business partners. They filed the patents under his company. Made hundreds of millions from your work. And then they destroyed your career so you couldn't fight back. A single tear rolled down her cheek. You weren't supposed to know about that. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you fight them? What was I supposed to do, Samuel? Her voice cracked. I had no proof. They destroyed everything. No one would believe me. And I had you to think about. If I'd made waves, if I'd tried to fight them, they would have made our lives even worse. At least this way, you had a chance. A chance to get out, to make something of yourself. So you just gave up? Let them win. I did what I had to do to protect you. She was crying now. Really crying. I'd never seen her cry before. Not at my father's funeral. Not ever. Your father wanted to fight. Wanted to expose them. And look what happened to him. He drank himself to death because he couldn't live with the guilt. I wasn't going to let them take you too. I moved around the table, held her while she sobbed. All those years. All that pain. She'd carried it alone so I wouldn't have to bear it. Mom, I said softly. They're going to pay. All of them. I promise you. They're going to pay for what they did to you. To Dad. To us. She pulled back, looked at me with red eyes. Samuel, no? Just take the money. Live your life. Don't let them poison you with hate like they poisoned your father. It's not hate, Mom. It's justice. Justice won't bring back your father. Won't give me back my career. Won't give you back your childhood. No, I agreed. But it will make sure they don't get to pretend they're good people anymore. It will make sure everyone knows what they did. And it will make sure they lose everything, the way we lost everything. She searched my face for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. What do you need from me? Over the next 2 weeks, I assembled my team. And when you have $200 million, you can afford the best. First, I hired a law firm. Not just any law firm, the same firm that had represented tech giants in patent disputes. I showed them everything my uncle had left me. The research notes, the patents, the emails. The senior partner, a woman named Jennifer Martinez, looked at the evidence with sharp eyes. This is airtight, she said. We can go after them for patent infringement, intellectual property theft, fraud, conspiracy. We're talking hundreds of millions in damages. I want more than money, I said. I want them destroyed. She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Mr. Chun, by the time we're done with them, they'll wish all you wanted was money. Second, I hired a PR firm. The kind that handles crisis management for celebrities and politicians. I met with the founder, David Park, at his office in downtown LA. I need you to tell a story, I told him. The story of how a brilliant scientist was destroyed by her own family. How her research was stolen. How she and her husband and son were left to suffer in poverty while the thieves lived in mansions bought with her work. David leaned forward. You want to destroy their reputation. I want everyone to know who they really are. The charity galas, the society pages, the business awards. I want all of it to turn to ash. When do you want to start? As soon as the lawsuit is filed. Third, I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus, different Marcus from the attorney, and he specialized in financial crimes. I gave him access to everything my uncle had left me. I need you to find every dirty secret, I told him. Every shady business deal. Every corner they cut. Every law they bent. Everything. Your uncle kept meticulous records, Marcus said, scrolling through the files. He's already done half my work. But I can dig deeper. Find things even he didn't know about. Do it. And finally, I bought back my mother's work. Or rather, I started the process. Richmond Pharmaceuticals, the company my uncle had used to file the stolen patents, had been sold years ago. But the patents were still active, still generating revenue. Through a web of shell companies and intermediaries, I began acquiring shares in every company that held licensing rights to my mother's compound. It took millions, tens of millions, but I didn't care. By the end of the second week, I controlled enough shares to have a say in board decisions. By the end of the third week, I was the majority shareholder. And then I started changing things. The lawsuit hit the news on a Monday morning. Jennifer Martinez had timed it perfectly, filed it on Friday afternoon, sent the press releases on Monday. The headlines were everywhere. Tech billionaire's fortune built on stolen research, lawsuit claims. Family betrayal. Woman's life's work allegedly stolen by brother-in-law. Chun family empire crumbles as heir files massive lawsuit. David Park's PR team had done their job. The story was everywhere. News sites, social media, morning shows. And it wasn't just the legal angle. It was the human story. The brilliant scientist. The stolen research. The family destroyed by greed. My phone started ringing within an hour. Reporters. Old friends I hadn't heard from in years. People I'd gone to high school with. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. I ignored them all. Except for one call. Samuel Chun? The voice was clipped, angry. This is Victoria Chun. I think we need to talk. Hello, Victoria. How's the weather in Pacific Heights? Don't play games with me. This lawsuit is ridiculous. You know it. We know it. And the courts will know it. Really? Because my attorneys seem pretty confident. Something about ironclad evidence. That evidence is fabricated. Our father was sick at the end. He wasn't in his right mind. You manipulated him, probably forged those documents. The patents are public record, Victoria. The filing dates don't lie. The research notes have your father's fingerprints all over them. Literally, the forensics team checked. And the emails? Those came from your accounts. Your actual email accounts. Silence on the other end. What do you want? She finally asked. I want you to know what it feels like. To have everything taken from you. To watch your perfect life crumble. To understand that actions have consequences. You're insane. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just my father's son. You remember my father, right? The one who drank himself to death because your family destroyed him. That wasn't our. Save it for the depositions, Victoria. I'm sure the press will love hearing all about it. I hung up. My phone rang again immediately. James this time. I let it go to voicemail. Then my grandmother called. I let that go to voicemail too. Then I called my mother. Turn on channel 7. I said. Samuel, what? Just turn it on. I heard her fumbling with the TV remote. Then silence. On the screen was a photo of my mother from her Stanford days. Young. Smiling. Brilliant. The news anchor was talking about her groundbreaking research. About how it had been stolen. About how she'd been silenced. They're telling your story, Mom. The truth. The whole world is going to know what they did to you. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, your father would be so proud of you. The lawsuit was just the beginning. Jennifer Martinez had filed a civil suit, but the evidence was so damning that the district attorney opened a criminal investigation. Fraud. Conspiracy. Intellectual property theft. My uncle's business partners started turning on each other. The emails I'd released showed clear coordination. A conspiracy to steal research and destroy my mother's career. The DA started offering deals to anyone who would testify. Marcus, the investigator, found even more dirt. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Tax evasion. Bribes to university officials to blacklist my mother. It was a web of corruption that went deeper than even my uncle had known. The Chin family businesses started to collapse. Victoria was on the board of 3 companies. All of them asked for her resignation within a week. The scandal was too much. Nobody wanted to be associated with the family that had stolen a dying woman's life's work. James lost his position at a venture capital firm. The partners released a statement. We maintain the highest ethical standards and cannot be associated with the alleged activities. My grandmother's charitable foundation, the one she'd built her reputation on, started losing donors. Turns out people don't want to support a charity run by someone who destroyed her own family. But I wasn't satisfied. Not yet. I bought the mansion in Pacific Heights. My grandmother's house. The place where they'd held those family reunions I was never invited to. The place where they'd joked about my family's poverty over expensive dinners. It had been in the family for 3 generations. My grandmother loved that house more than she loved her own children. I paid cash. $30 million. The seller couldn't refuse. Then I called my grandmother. Hello, Samuel. Her voice was ice. Enjoying your blood money. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about your house. My house is none of your business. It is now. I bought it. Closed escrow this morning. You have 30 days to vacate. Silence. Then, you can't do this. I can and I did. The same way you destroyed my family, grandmother. With money and power and absolutely no mercy. Everything I did was to protect this family. Your mother was a nobody. She would have dragged us all down. My mother was a genius. She was going to change the world. And you destroyed her because she chose love over your arranged marriage. Because she dared to defy you. She made her choice. And choices have consequences. You're right, I said. They do. And now you're facing the consequences of your choices. 30 days, grandmother. After that, I'm having the locks changed. I hung up before she could respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my hotel room. I'd moved to a permanent suite at the Fairmont and thought about my father. He would have hated this. The revenge. The cruelty. He'd been a gentle man. Kind. Even after everything they'd done to him, he never spoke badly about his family. He just drank. And drank. And drank until his liver gave out. But my mother's words kept echoing in my head. Your father would be so proud of you. Would he? Or would he be disappointed that I'd become what they were, ruthless, calculating, willing to destroy anyone who got in my way? I pushed the thoughts away. It was too late for doubt now. I'd started this. I was going to finish it. David Park's PR strategy was surgical. Every week, a new revelation. Every week, the story got bigger. Week 1, the stolen research. The patents. The smoking gun evidence. Week 2, the blacklisting. How my uncle and his partners had systematically destroyed my mother's career. Emails to university hiring committees. Calls to research labs. A coordinated campaign to make sure she never worked in her field again. Week 3, the family's cruelty. The emails between Victoria and James. The jokes about our poverty. The callous disregard for human suffering. Week 4, my father's death. How the stress and guilt had driven him to alcoholism. How my mother had tried to hold our family together while fighting depression and the knowledge that her life's work had been stolen. The public ate it up. The story had everything. Betrayal, greed, a brilliant woman destroyed by her own family, a son seeking justice. It was perfect for the 24-hour news cycle. But it was also true. Every word, every detail. And that made it devastating. Victoria tried to fight back. She hired her own PR firm, did an interview with a sympathetic reporter, claimed my uncle had been senile at the end, that I'd manipulated him, that the evidence was fabricated. Jennifer Martinez released more documents the next day. Video of my uncle, clearly lucid, explaining everything. Forensic reports on the evidence. Expert testimony. Victoria's interview became a punchline. The internet tore her apart. James tried a different approach. He released a statement apologizing. Said he'd been young and stupid. Didn't really understand what his father had done. Was truly sorry for the pain caused. Marcus the investigator found emails James had sent just 6 months ago, joking about the poor relations at a dinner party. David Park made sure those emails went viral. My grandmother refused to comment. She locked herself in the Pacific Heights mansion for the remaining days she had there and refused to speak to anyone. But the society pages talked anyway. Every charity she'd supported distanced themselves. Every friend she'd cultivated for decades suddenly had other commitments. The social climbing she'd spent her life on crumbled in weeks. And through it all, I watched. Silent. Calculating. Making sure every domino fell exactly where I wanted it to. Remember how I'd been buying up shares in every company that licensed my mother's compound? That investment was about to pay off. The compound, now known as Zenithrix in the pharmaceutical world, was in dozens of drugs, blood pressure medication, anti-inflammatories, cancer treatments. It generated over $1 billion in annual revenue across multiple companies. Once I had controlling interest, I started making moves. First, I fired every executive who had worked with my uncle. Every single one who had known the research was stolen and stayed silent. I had the evidence. Marcus had found emails, memos, internal documents showing they all knew. Some went quietly. Others threatened lawsuits. I welcomed the lawsuits. More publicity. More evidence in the public record. Second, I restructured the licensing agreements. Instead of the companies paying licensing fees to Richmond Pharmaceutical successors, they now paid them to a new foundation I'd established, the Dr. Linda Chen Research Foundation. My mother's name. Her legacy. Finally getting the recognition it deserved. Third, I redirected the foundation's funds. Scholarships for women in STEM. Grants for research into diseases that pharmaceutical companies ignored because they weren't profitable enough. Support for young scientists from underprivileged backgrounds. Everything my mother would have done with her success if it hadn't been stolen from her. The business press loved it. The redemption angle. The stolen research finally being used for good. My mother's name in headlines for her brilliance instead of her victimhood. But Victoria and James weren't done yet. They filed a countersuit. Claimed I'd used undue influence on my uncle. That he'd been coerced into changing his will. That the whole thing was fraud. Jennifer Martinez smiled when she heard. They just made a huge mistake. How so? Now we get to depose them. Under oath. On the record. And your investigator found some very interesting things about their finances, didn't he? Marcus had indeed. Turns out Victoria and James had been embezzling from the family businesses for years. Small amounts. Covered up well. But Marcus had found it. When we bring that up in depositions, Jennifer said, they'll have two choices, perjure themselves or admit to financial crimes. And either way, we win. Either way, we win. The depositions were scheduled for the following month. I couldn't wait. 3 weeks after I bought my grandmother's house, she called me. I want to meet, she said. No pleasantries. No small talk. I'm busy. Samuel, please. Face to face. Just once. Something in her voice made me pause. Not weakness. Not exactly. But something close to it. Fine. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Your house. It's not my house anymore. No, I agreed. It's not. I showed up exactly at 2 p.m. The door was unlocked. I walked into the foyer. Massive, marble, obscenely expensive. The kind of foyer I'd dreamed about as a kid in our tiny apartment. My grandmother was in the sitting room. She'd aged since the last time I'd seen her. The stress was visible in every line on her face. Thank you for coming, she said. I didn't sit down. You have 15 minutes. I want you to stop this. The lawsuits. The media campaign. The destruction of everything our family built. Your family built it on my mother's work. On her stolen research. It was never yours to begin with. Your mother made a choice. Don't. My voice was sharp. Don't you dare blame her for your actions. She chose love. She chose my father. That's not a crime. She broke her promise. She embarrassed our family. So you destroyed her? Destroyed my father? Destroyed me? Because of embarrassment. My grandmother stood up, her hands shaking. You don't understand what it was like. The expectations. The pressure. Our families had been planning that marriage for years. And she threw it all away for some romance. Some romance. I laughed. It sounded bitter. They were married for 14 years. They had me. They built a life together. That's not romance, grandmother. That's love. And where did that love get them? Your father dead at 42. Your mother a shell of herself. You growing up in poverty. Because of you. I was shouting now. Couldn't help it. They would have been fine. My mother's research would have made her famous. Wealthy. But you couldn't stand that, could you? Couldn't stand that she succeeded without the family. So you took it from her. Your uncle took it. Not me. You orchestrated it. I have the emails. I have recordings. You told Richard to steal the research. You told him to blacklist her. You made sure she'd never work again. She sank back into her chair. For the first time, she looked old. Really old. I thought I was protecting the family, she said quietly. You were protecting your ego. Your pride. And it cost you everything. It cost you everything too. No, I said. It gave me clarity. It showed me exactly who you are. Who you've always been. And now the whole world knows it too. I turned to leave. Samuel, wait. I stopped. What do you want? To make this stop? What will it take? I looked back at her. This woman who'd destroyed my family, who'd stolen my childhood, who'd killed my father as surely as if she'd poured the alcohol down his throat herself. I want you to admit it. Publicly. I want you to stand in front of cameras and tell the truth. About what you did. About why you did it. About the lives you destroyed because your future daughter-in-law chose the wrong son. I can't do that. Then we have nothing more to discuss. If I do that, I'll lose everything. Good, I said. Now you know how it feels. I left her sitting there, in a house that wasn't hers anymore, surrounded by the remnants of a life built on cruelty and lies. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt tired. The depositions were held at Jennifer Martinez's firm. Glass conference room. Expensive furniture. Recording equipment. Court reporters. Victoria went first. She showed up in a designer suit, perfect makeup, her lawyer by her side. The same smug expression I remembered from the funerals. Jennifer started gentle. Background questions. Victoria's education. Her career. Her relationship with her father. Then the tone shifted. Ms. Chun, were you aware that your father's company, Richmond Pharmaceuticals, filed patents based on research conducted by Dr. Linda Chun? That's not. I wasn't involved in the business side. But you were on the board of Richmond Pharmaceuticals from 2018 to 2023, correct? Yes, but... And you received compensation from that board position? Yes. How much, total, over those 5 years? Victoria's lawyer objected. Jennifer pushed. The lawyer backed down. Approximately $3 million, Victoria admitted. $3 million from a company that, according to the evidence we've presented, built its initial fortune on stolen intellectual property. Were you aware of this? I was not. Jennifer slid a document across the table. This is an email from your father to you, dated April 2019. In it, he discusses the Linda situation and how the patents filed in 1993 were the foundation of everything. Were you familiar with this email? Victoria stared at the document. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to spin it. I don't recall this specific email. It's from your email account. Your actual account, verified by forensic IT specialists. Are you saying you don't remember your father explicitly telling you that the company's fortune came from patents that rightfully belonged to his brother's wife? I may have received it, but I didn't understand the implications. You didn't understand that the Linda situation referred to Dr. Linda Chin, Samuel's mother? Your aunt. I thought it was just business matters. Jennifer smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Let's talk about some other business matters. Specifically, financial irregularities in Richmond Pharmaceuticals accounts between 2018 and 2023. Victoria's face went pale. For the next 2 hours, Jennifer systematically destroyed her. The embezzlement, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, every financial crime Victoria had committed, thinking she was clever enough not to get caught. By the end, Victoria was in tears. Her lawyer was furiously taking notes, probably calculating how much trouble she was in. James's deposition was the next day. He tried a different approach, contrition, admitted he'd known about the stolen research, claimed he'd been raised to think it was normal, that he didn't understand the full implications until recently. Jennifer didn't buy it. Mr. Chun, I'm going to read you an email you sent to your sister 3 years ago. Quote, Samuel looked pathetic at Grandma's funeral, wearing the same cheap suit from Dad's funeral 5 years ago. At least our parents' beach house was funded by his mom's stupidity. Do those words sound like someone who didn't understand the implications? James didn't have an answer. Let's try another one. This is a text message you sent to a friend 6 months ago. The poor relations think they deserve something just because Dad felt guilty at the end. Let them try. Our lawyers will crush them. Still don't understand the implications. James's deposition lasted 3 hours. By the end, he'd admitted to everything. The knowledge, the mockery, the complete lack of remorse. It was all on the record now, all under oath, all admissible in court. Jennifer called me that evening. We've got them. The criminal DA is going to love this. And the civil suit? We're looking at treble damages now. Punitive damages. This is going to be historic. How much are we talking? $500 million. Maybe more. I thought about my mother, about my father, about the tiny apartment and the instant ramen and the nights I'd gone to bed hungry because we couldn't afford food and pride in the same month. Good, I said. Take every penny. While the legal battles raged, I started building something new. The Dr. Linda Chen Research Foundation wasn't just a tax shelter or a vanity project. It was going to be my mother's legacy, the career she never got to have. I hired the best people I could find, scientists who'd been marginalized, researchers whose work was too risky for traditional funding, people who reminded me of what my mother could have been. The foundation's first major project, funding research into treatments for depression, specifically the kind of treatment-resistant depression my mother had suffered from for 30 years. I didn't tell her at first. Just started the project, hired the researchers, set up the labs. Then, 2 months after the depositions, I brought her to the foundation's headquarters. A beautiful building in South San Francisco, all glass and light. Her name on the wall in letters 3 feet tall. "What is this?" she asked. "Your legacy. Your chance to finish what they took from you." I showed her the labs, the equipment, introduced her to the research team. Young scientists, brilliant, hungry to make a difference. "They're working on depression treatments," I explained. "New approaches, novel compounds, everything the pharmaceutical companies won't touch because it's not profitable enough." My mother walked through the labs like she was in a dream, touching the equipment, reading the research proposals, talking to the scientists. One of them, a young woman from Stanford, same as my mother, showed her a compound they were working on. "It's based on your original research," the woman said. "The Zenithrix compound. We're modifying it, seeing if we can target specific neurotransmitter pathways." My mother stared at the molecular diagrams. This is brilliant. Have you tried running it through?" And just like that, she was back. The brilliant scientist. The woman she'd been before they broke her. She spent 3 hours in the lab that day, talking, thinking, contributing, her eyes bright for the first time in decades. In the car on the way home, she cried. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me back my work. It was always yours, Mom. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." The civil trial started in September, 6 months after I'd received the inheritance. It felt like a lifetime. The courthouse was packed. Media everywhere. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a story. A symbol. The little guy taking on the powerful family. The stolen research finally getting justice. Jennifer Martinez was magnificent. She laid out the case methodically. The research notes in my mother's handwriting. The patents filed months later under my uncle's company. The emails planning the theft. The conspiracy to destroy my mother's career. She brought in expert witnesses. Scientists who explained the revolutionary nature of my mother's work. IP lawyers who testified about the theft. Forensic accountants who tracked every dollar my uncle's companies had made from the stolen research. Then she played the videos. My uncle's confession. His explanation of everything. His guilt. The courtroom was silent. I watched the jury. Saw their expressions change from skepticism to shock to anger. Victoria and James's lawyers tried to fight back. Claimed my uncle had been manipulated. That he was senile. That the evidence was fabricated. But they couldn't explain away the patents. The dates. The identical formulas. The paper trail was too clear. Then Jennifer called my mother to the stand. I'd argued against it. Didn't want to put her through the trauma. But she'd insisted. She walked to the stand slowly, worn down by 30 years of depression and loss. But when she sat down, when she started talking about her research, something changed. She was brilliant again. Articulate. Passionate. She explained her work in terms everyone could understand. Described the years of research. The breakthrough. The excitement. Then Jennifer asked, "What happened after you made your discovery?" My mother's voice didn't waver. "My research disappeared. My lab notes were stolen. When I tried to publish, I was told the work was proprietary, but I hadn't signed over any rights. When I tried to find another position, I was blacklisted. No one would hire me. No one would touch me. Why? Because Richard Chun and his business partners had decided my work was more valuable than my career, more valuable than my life. They took everything I'd created and left me with nothing. How did that affect you?" I fell into depression. Deep depression. I couldn't work. Could barely function. My husband tried to support us, but we had a child. Bills. The pressure broke him. He started drinking. Eventually, it killed him. The courtroom was silent. "And your son?" Jennifer asked. My mother looked at me. He grew up in poverty. Saw his mother as a shell. Lost his father at 14. He suffered for crimes he didn't commit. Paid for sins that weren't his. All because of stolen research. All because Richard Chun and his family decided their greed was more important than our lives. The defense tried to cross-examine her, tried to make her seem unreliable, mentally unstable, a woman with an axe to grind. But she didn't break, just answered every question calmly, factually. The brilliant scientist, even after everything they'd done to her. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, the forewoman read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Damages, $540 million. The courtroom erupted. I sat frozen, trying to process it. We'd won. Actually won. Jennifer was grinning. This is the biggest IP theft judgment in California history. And with the criminal charges pending, Victoria and James are looking at jail time. I looked at my mother. She was crying. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Vindication. Justice. The criminal trial came 3 months later. Victoria and James both took plea deals. 5 years for Victoria. 7 for James. They'd serve maybe half with good behavior. My grandmother died 2 weeks before sentencing. Heart attack. The stress, the doctors said. I didn't go to the funeral. Neither did my mother. Victoria and James lost everything. The houses, the cars, the society memberships. All of it went to pay the judgment. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted them to understand. Really understand what they'd done. So I did something that might make me a terrible person. I bought the prison commissary company that serviced their facilities. Used shell companies, of course. Made sure they'd never trace it back to me. And then I marked up everything. Every item they could buy. Soap, toothpaste, ramen noodles. Ironic, that. Everything cost twice what it should. I wanted them to know what it felt like. To count pennies. To choose between necessities. To feel the constant, grinding pressure of not having enough. Was it petty? Absolutely. Did I feel bad about it? Not even a little. My mother's foundation continued to grow. The depression research showed promising results. We expanded into other areas. Treatments for PTSD, anxiety disorders, addiction. Everything my father might have benefited from, if he'd had access to proper care. If he hadn't been drowning in guilt and poverty and despair. I moved my mother out of the Oakland apartment. Bought her a house in Berkeley. Small but nice. Near the university. Near the foundation. She started consulting on research projects. Contributing. Her name appeared on papers again. Dr. Linda Chun, the brilliant scientist, getting the recognition she deserved. I kept the Pacific Heights mansion. Turned it into the foundation's headquarters. My grandmother's precious house. The symbol of everything she'd valued. Now dedicated to helping people she would have looked down on. Every time I walked through those doors, I thought about the family reunions I'd never been invited to. The dinners where they'd laughed about my poverty. The casual cruelty. And I smiled. 1 year after receiving my uncle's letter, I wrote one of my own. Not to him. He was dead. But to Victoria and James. I had it delivered to them in prison. Made sure they got it the same day, at the same time. This is what it said. Victoria and James. By now, you've been in prison for about 8 months. I imagine you've had a lot of time to think. About your choices. About what you did. About how you ended up here. I want you to know something. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for filing the lawsuit. I'm not sorry for exposing your family's crimes. I'm not sorry for taking everything you had. Because you were never sorry for what you did to me. You grew up in mansions bought with my mother's stolen work. You went to elite schools paid for with her research. You built careers on the foundation of her destroyed dreams. And you laughed about it. Joked about the poor relations. Made fun of my cheap suits and my father's failure and my mother's depression. You never once thought about what it cost us. Never once considered that your wealth was bought with our suffering. So no, I'm not sorry. I'm writing this from the Pacific Heights mansion. Your grandmother's house. The one I bought out from under her. It's beautiful, by the way. I can see why she loved it so much. I've turned it into the headquarters for my mother's foundation. The Dr. Linda Chun Research Foundation. We're doing amazing work. Funding research that actually helps people instead of just making pharmaceutical companies rich. Your father's money, my mother's money, really, is finally being used for good. I think about you sometimes, when I'm walking through these halls. Wonder if you're thinking about me. If you understand yet what you lost. Not just the money. Not just the houses and the cars and the society memberships. Your legacy. Your reputation. The family name you were so proud of. The Chun family is synonymous with greed now. With cruelty. With the casual destruction of lives for profit. That's your legacy. That's what you'll be remembered for. My mother, on the other hand, she's becoming famous for her brilliance. Her research is helping people. Her name is on buildings, on scholarships, on groundbreaking papers. She's getting the recognition she always deserved, the career they stole from her. And me? I'm getting to watch, getting to see her smile again, getting to see her do the work she loves. That's worth more than all the money in the world. But the money helps too. I hope you're enjoying the ramen noodles. I made sure to mark them up extra high. Call it a nostalgia tax. They remind me of my childhood. I hope you think about that every time you eat them. Every time you count your pennies in the commissary. Every time you feel the weight of not having enough. That was my entire childhood. Every single day. And you laughed about it. Who's laughing now? I won't write again. This isn't the beginning of correspondence. I just wanted you to know that I haven't forgotten. I'll never forget. Every success the foundation has, I'll think of you. Every paper my mother publishes, I'll think of you. Every person we help with the research you tried to bury, I'll think of you. You'll be serving time for a few more years. But your real sentence? That's for life. You'll spend the rest of your existence knowing that you had everything and lost it all because you couldn't resist mocking the family you destroyed. Sleep well. Samuel Chun. P.S. I heard from my lawyers that you're both trying to appeal. Don't waste your money. The evidence is ironclad. The verdict is final. It's over. You lost. Get used to it that I'm writing this 3 years after that letter. 3 years after the trials. 3 years after everything changed. Victoria got out of prison last month. James has another year to go. My grandmother is dead. My uncle is dead. My mother is alive. Thriving, even. The foundation has expanded to 5 cities. We employ over 200 people. The depression research led to a breakthrough, a new treatment that's currently in phase 3 trials. Early results are incredible. My mother's name is on the patents. Her name. Finally, she won a major award last year, the Chun Prize for Innovation in Neuroscience. They named it after our family, not after the criminals who stole from her, but after her, after the victim who became a victor. I sat in the audience while she accepted it, watched her give a speech about perseverance and justice and never giving up on your dreams even when the world tries to crush them. She didn't mention the theft, didn't mention Richard or my grandmother or any of it. She'd moved past it, forgiven maybe, or just decided that her success was revenge enough. I haven't forgiven. I don't think I ever will. But I found something like peace. I still live in the Pacific Heights mansion, still walk those halls thinking about everything that happened here. But it doesn't feel like a haunted house anymore. It feels like a monument, a reminder that cruelty has consequences, that theft catches up to you, that justice, even delayed, is still justice. I see Victoria sometimes around the city. She works at a coffee shop now. Minimum wage. No one wants to hire a convicted felon, even one from a formerly wealthy family. She pretends not to see me. I pretend not to see her. But I always leave a big tip. Make sure the barista knows it's from me. It's petty. I know it's petty. But I never claimed to be a good person. Just a person who got justice for his family. My father's grave is in Oakland. Small headstone. Nothing fancy. I visit once a month, bring flowers, talk to him about everything that's happened. I hope I made you proud, Dad. I say every time. I hope this is what you would have wanted. I don't know if it is. My father was a kind man. A gentle man. He might have chosen forgiveness over revenge. But he's not here. And I am. And I made the choices I thought were right. The money, what's left of it after the foundation's expenses and my living costs, sits in accounts I barely touch. $200 million seemed like everything when I first got it. Now it just seems like money. The real inheritance was the truth. The evidence. The ability to finally make them pay for what they did. That's worth more than any amount of money. Last week, my mother called me, asked me to meet her at the foundation. I went, worried something was wrong. But when I got there, she was smiling. I have something to show you, she said. She led me to one of the labs. Inside, a young researcher, the same woman from Stanford who'd shown my mother the depression research 3 years ago, was working on something new. Tell him, my mother said. The researcher looked up, excited. We've done it. The new compound. The one based on your mother's original work. It's passed all the trials. FDA approval is expected in 6 months. What does that mean? I asked. It means, my mother said softly, that my research, the work they stole, the work that destroyed my career, is finally going to help people. Millions of people. People suffering from treatment-resistant depression, like I did. She took my hand. Everything they did. Everything they took. It led to this. To a treatment that's going to save lives. They didn't lead to this, I said. You did. Your brilliance. Your research. Your refusal to give up even when they tried to bury you. Maybe, she said. But you made it possible. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You made sure the truth came out. You gave me back my life's work. I'm just glad you get to see it succeed. That you get to be here for this. She smiled. It was the smile I remembered from old photographs. Before the theft. Before the depression. Before everything fell apart. Your father would be so proud, she said. And maybe he would be. Maybe he'd forgive the cruelty of my revenge. Maybe he'd understand that sometimes justice requires a firm hand. Or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he'd be disappointed in the person I became. I'll never know. But I know this. I did what I had to do. I protected my mother. I exposed the truth. I made sure the people who destroyed my family faced consequences. And if that makes me a bad person, if that makes me just like them, then so be it. I can live with that. Because my mother can finally live. Really live. Do the work she loves. See her research help people instead of just making criminals rich. That's worth any amount of guilt. That's worth everything. I'm Samuel Chun. 3 years ago, I inherited $200 million from a man who helped destroy my family. But the real inheritance? That was the truth. The evidence. The ability to finally set things right. Money doesn't buy happiness. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't bring back the dead. But it does buy justice. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, that's everything. The foundation continues to grow. My mother continues to research. Victoria serves coffee. James sits in prison. And me? I wake up every morning in the mansion that used to represent everything I couldn't have. Everything I wasn't good enough for. Now it represents everything I've built. Everything I've taken back. Everything I've made right. I won. And they lost. And that knowledge? That sweet, perfect knowledge? That's the real inheritance. That's what I'll carry for the rest of my life. Not the money. Not the mansion. Not even the satisfaction of watching them fall. Just the simple, perfect truth. I protected my mother. I honored my father. I got justice for my family. And nothing they did, nothing they took, nothing they destroyed. None of it was enough to stop me. They thought they could steal my mother's work and get away with it. They thought they could mock my family without consequences. They thought money and power made them untouchable. They were wrong. And now they know it. Now everyone knows it. The Chun family name used to mean cruelty and greed. Now it means justice and redemption. That's my legacy. That's my mother's legacy. And that's worth more than $200 million. That's worth everything.